So that was the stats from last year's World Unity Week 2021. There was a reach of 50 million through Facebook, and you can see all these impressive figures that those in the core team put together, and that was all over 1 week. So we're hoping that this year will be as good, if not better. So because it's been a great initiative, started in 2020. Really, it was like started as a march, a caravan across the US. But then with COVID, the physical caravan could not really proceed. So it went virtual. And from that partial virtual in 2020, we had a full virtual last year, World Unity Week. And this year is the third year. So that's how it's been progressing. Now, I'll be introducing Argerie. I will spotlight her. Argerie.
Yeah, she is spotlighted, I think.
Yes? Okay, let me go to speaker view. Okay, I was in gallery view. So I'm seeing you. Okay, Argerie is here. So Argerie Vasilakes, I hope I'm pronouncing it well. She introduces herself with a question to start off. Are you doing transformative work? And she says that she is, and it can be exhausting and heartbreaking. Creating art helped her understand her suffering as yearning. She says art making has offered some solace. And more than that, she feels reconnected to a legacy of creativity that is billions of years old. And tapping into that cosmic flow has shown her how her work in the world has been her spiritual path toward the world, my communities, and she says she also longs for. And as a result, she has become a better transformative leader. So whether you call yourself a change agent or activist, or just someone wanting to live in better attunement with your values in a world that seems counter to them, she invites us to come and hear her story and share some of ours. So Argerie, you can take the floor now. Welcome. It's we're humbled, and it's an honor to have you with us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Tex, Hasina. Thank you for the invitation. Orla, everyone. In the last 20-some years in my professional life, people have called me many things. In the roles that I've been in, they've called me change agent, change manager, transformation leader. And I have plugged my nose at those terms for the opportunity to understand how do organizations and communities change in ways that acknowledge themselves as alive, as living systems, as legacies of the cosmic flow of creativity that we all feel, even if we don't have words for them. So I've been in professional life in businesses long enough that I finally made my way to roles where I could experiment with some of these ideas. And this is part of the story that I'd like to share with you. And I hope that in hearing my story, you're also hearing a piece of yours. And in this time together, I'm hoping we can be a little interactive. So now might be a good place to start. And so I might invite anyone who wishes to unmute, and maybe we can go on gallery for this text, is just to check in with three things. How is it that you would like us to call you? Where in the world are you? And how might you respond to this question? In what one way might you be thought of as an agent of change? Might you be thought of as an agent of change? And Tex and Hasina, I'm hoping that you will go first just to pave the way for just briefly.
Me unmute, yeah. I am doing that in this collaboration. I mean, coming out of the Deep Time Leadership and Personal Empowerment course that I'm grateful to Ola O'Reilly Hazra, who's here, who almost twisted my arm to get me to attend the course, and Annie Spade, who also strongly encouraged me. And so I did go through the course since September, twice a week. There were 2 sessions. It was Wednesday and Friday. It repeats on Friday, and for a different time zone, but I attended both generally. Anyway, so my way of being the change is trying to bring the deep time perspective, the context, to a wider public. And I knew about World Unity Week. So that's how we got to bring it to World Unity Week in Chaos and Order, Deep Time Perspective.
That's terrific. Thank you, Tex. So the question, Hasina, is in what ways might you be thought of as an agent of change? Or what one way?
Thought of, I don't know, but I'm going to use my filter. And
okay.
I promised myself to step into my light fully. And I decided that, there were certain things that I wasn't giving myself fully to, particularly putting out videos and so on. And so I promised myself to do this. So this is sort of a catalyst for me right now. And I guess that's my way of using my voice for change, because I feel that when one expresses oneself, it can be so powerful. And why not use the gift? Like, this is my promise to myself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. May we hear from maybe 3 more people? In what one way might you be thought of as an agent of change?
Yeah. Let's go.
I can hop in. Go ahead,
Hi,
Tex.
Annie.
Hi, Argerie. I'm great to meet you. So I'm Annie Spade on Tonkawa land in Central Texas, and my call is to bring the voice of the young child forward in whatever way that I can. So I've just been working with young children for a long, long time.
Thank you. Heather.
I'm Heather Spring, and one of the things I do is function as an Anamkara, a soul companion, spiritual director. It has a lot of names. And I encourage people in their own discernment, which allows them to change as they engage in that.
Thank you. One more.
Hi there.
Heather.
Hi, Linda.
Okay. Linda, okay.
Hi. Well, one of the things that I bring through and have brought through 40 years ago and I'm still working with, is the flags of one family, and as a symbol of our unity. And so through Unity Earth, the flags are moving through the world in different people's hands, and as a symbol of unity, to help people understand that we all have our differences, but when we all work together like this, we have a lot of beauty and harmony. And our website is flagsofOneFamily.org.
Thank you. I can really see the beauty in that, the waving of those flags all around the world.
Yeah, it's movement. There's a secret in movement.
Yes, and I think you've given me a word to help me to understand a main thrust of my own insight that came as a person who cares about tuning into ourselves as living beings rather than as widgets. And the corporate world, thank you for the applause, but sometimes that feels a little cliche and unfair. But what I noticed in my experience is change is not necessarily seen as movement or life in flow already begun, but rather as a problem to be solved. That in organizations or in communities, what we're after is stability. And when there's market disruption, or when there's a merger, or when new leaders are taking over, or a pandemic, or a great resignation, or somehow there have to be this role called the change manager who needs to manage the change. And I found that there's a pattern to this way of controlling organizations, what we call changing organizations. And there are four themes that I've noticed, and I'm bringing these up in order to counter them with what I'm learning through my art making. And the first theme is that organizations are broken and they need to be fixed. The second theme is that in order to fix organizations, we need to put rules into place so that people can comply with them. Number three is that we are after maximizing profits. And number four is that the benefit goes to a few. And I wondered if there might be a different way of thinking about the work that we normally do as creative beings in movement, Linda, in movement, not only as individuals, but collectively in communities, whether they be businesses or grassroots activist organizations or government or anything. And so here's what I have been longing for and experimenting with for a while. On the one hand, could we expand our view from organizations as being broken to being self-organizing, self-healing, even an unending creative energy flow? And what difference would that make? Could we expand our view from thinking of organizations and communities from being controlled by rules to rather being oriented to love, to be moved by what allures us and what we care for? And what difference would that make? Could we learn to expand our view from maximizing profits? Not that making money is a bad thing, but to understand that prosperity has many other values, and that in the production of those values, could we be guided by a sense of sufficiency, not taking more than we need, or that some take more and others are left with little? And then could we think of organizations not as elitist, which leads to a natural competitiveness, to rather think of organizations as more democratic, which leads to a natural collaborativeness. And what difference would all of those things mean? So here I am finally in roles toward the end of my business, my corporate career, experimenting with these ideas, feeling as though I am banging my head against a wall, where there are little moves, and little incremental moves are lovely. And I recall gobbling those up like manna, gobbling those little pieces up until I thought, we can't play around here. And so I took the leap and began experimenting with colleagues in a different kind of setting. And I want to tell you about a setting where the three of us colleagues decided that what we were going to do was to bring about something called Mandala Leadership. Doesn't that sound gorgeous? Mandala Leadership. And I was all in. And so we had a few weeks before we were going to do this workshop in the woods with a group of people, some of whom were taking a course on spiritual ecology. And so in those few weeks, I asked, but what do we mean by Mandala leadership? What is that? What is Mandala leadership? And we couldn't answer it. I did some research, as you might, and you might be familiar with the mandala coloring books that are available almost anywhere. You could take your coloring pencils, and it really can be quite a meditative experience to do such a thing. And one sheet only costs $3. And I read something written by a curator of an exhibition of gorgeous mandalas who said this, that a mandala represents an idealized universe, a symbolic way to envision how the universe works, that they represent the universe from the point of view of an enlightened being. It's a place to work toward enlightenment by working to see the world as enlightened beings do. Wow. And of course, it's hard not to think about the Buddhist monks who make the famous sand mandalas for days and days, meticulously putting these colors and these symbols together only to wipe away the sand in an act of non-attraction, holding on, and dump that sand back into the river whence it came. And even in my growing up, I was aware of mandalas as icons in church, and the famous Celtic mandalas that are everywhere in Celtic art. And in Jewish tradition, there are also mandalas. So I saw all these examples, and I still wasn't clear about what mandala leadership could draw from that. So we went to the workshop in the woods, and we asked people to create their own individual mandalas on a piece of 8.5 by 11 drawing paper. And we put them all down in a circle right there in a clearing in the woods, all of these gorgeous little unique mandalas, and gorgeous they were as people would stand and share their individual mandalas. The heart field grew larger in that forested space, and our hearts melted into the possibility of this being available always. And in good workshops, you always ask people, well, what do you think this means? And when we asked, what is the mandala? What is the relationship of the mandala to yourself as a leader? And they said, It brings a sense of connectedness. It's about courage to stand up. It's about meeting people with love, living with integrity, and to be able to sense into our own path in the moment, to add to an intuitive spontaneity in living. And I thought, great, we have some answers, except it said nothing to me about how do you intentionally co-create designs or conditions for this quality of leadership, which this, granted, look at the number of people, it's not that many, which this small number of people was apparently longing for, presumably in contrast to what they, like I, had been experiencing. So what was I to do except to start making mandalas? And my palette is fiber. I'm a crocheter. And so here's mercerized cotton and string and buttons and found stuff. This is, and look, tiny crochet hook. See, tiny crochet hook. As I weave the threads around the different colors that I found. So I didn't pretend that I could design in advance what was coming. From the beginning, I would take a roll like this. I would just take it and I would just start crocheting. I would be weaving around an intermediate piece of thread to create what basically looks like a rad rug. But for me, it wasn't enough. So remember where I've come from. It wasn't enough just to create a thing of beauty or to attempt a decoration. I had to actually make it utilitarian. So I sewed it onto a bag and I made like 100 mandala bags. And sometimes I made small circles like this around holiday time, and they would find themselves on people's Christmas trees or decorating their gorgeous vases. I decorated these ceremony bags, which I gave to the graduates of that spiritual ecology class. Yes, I even put a mandala on the head of a sugar skull and stuck that on a bag. And then I went small. This is 1 inch across, as is this necklace. And what I'm discovering at this point is just astonished at the flow, the flow of variety, the flow of creativity, as though here, for the first time, what's happening is that I'm tapping into, or being aware of tapping into, something that is already flowing. Like I'm dipping my foot into a river, a cool, refreshing river that keeps saying, yes, keep going, keep going. And when I want to rip something out, because the color's not right, or the stitch is off, or it says, keep going. Once in a while it says, you're right, rip that one out. But more of the time it says, keep going. So I tried selling these things, and yes, I sold 5 or 6 or 7 of them. I would give them away to friends and they would receive them politely. And what I found is that people started giving me material to weave into mandalas, like this handkerchief from a friend's grandmother, which I attached this mandala to. And so I began using mandalas as ways to honor people. And this is my first memorial mandala of a family member who died of COVID. And I used all clothes from her closet to make this mandala, and just discovered that there was no design from the beginning. What I started with was the essence of Renee, and this appeared. And this is Renee's shirt that made the circular tablecloth that went to her family, who would be having Thanksgiving for the first time without her. And so now the mandala is saying to me, find the need, find the need. Don't just look around and see what colors you have, find the need. And the need arose for me to take garbage and turn them into mandalas. Orla has heard me talk many times about my garbage mandalas. And these are some of the first ones. If you look very closely, you'll see writing on this one in the upper right-hand corner. This piece of material here was the packaging from ramen noodles. This blue shiny stuff was from Godiva chocolate bar. And so I started interweaving natural items like this piece of ivy vine from my house with artificial things, and embedded in this row, this is incomplete at this point, but in this row embedded are little LED lights. I began to hear from people that doing such thing, putting plastic, shiny foil, LED lights, was not what professional artists do. And for a second, I thought, this is good advice. This is a successful artist who's giving me her advice. And I went back to the mandalas, went back to the lit up LED mandala, went back to, at that point, I don't know, 40 mandalas that were featuring garbage, and was about to tell them I'm moving on. And they were so forlorn. And I knew what they had been teaching me, which I was about to walk away from, is there is beauty in everything. All I had to do was to look at it. All I had to do was to be open to it. Beauty in, and to think. Isn't advice giving an amazing thing? So I now want to tell you a story about one of the first profound lessons from Mandala. It is the story that helped me to understand that the mandala is, in essence, the sacred home of a divine being. So one day, I decided it was time to make an orange mandala. And so I went to the thrift store in search of orange fabric. I found an orange t-shirt. It was perfect, the perfect color. I brought it home and I started sewing on it, only to discover that there was a print on the t-shirt that I hadn't noticed. Look at what it was. It was this swordfish. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this now? So I thought, never mind, I'll turn it upside down, inside out. I'll just use the orange on the back. No one will know. If they turn it over, they'll see a cute swordfish. And so I started trying to cover it up, but it would not be covered up. And so the mandalas ended up creating some of the context for the swordfish. Look at how this one has watery frills here that are helping the swordfish leap out of its mandala. That was the first time that I realized that there were divinities out there. At least there was this one swordfish divinity that was looking for its home. This happened again. I thought it was complete with this mandala. I thought, I mean, it's nice. This one is about 24 to 30 inches across. It was nice. I was happy with this. I was cooking one day and I looked above the stove and saw a dusty red silk flower that I had been there forever, but I hadn't noticed it for a long time. Guess where it wanted to be? I mean, look, can you imagine? Can you imagine this without its divinity? And even as I'm telling you the story, and of course, the photos are nothing like the reality, and I hope that you come to an exhibit, a theoretical, technical, hypothesized fantasy exhibit that I'll have one day with these. I can feel my body responding to the divinity, that it had found its sacred home, and it was counting on the mandalas coming through my hands to come home. There were whimsical divinities that walked their way onto my mandalas. There were more earth-based ones. This is a quartz. Call it the purple flame. This was from a trip to Tarpon Springs, and a little shell right in the center. And the natural objects continued to find their way along with the artificial. Then this nest is just happy temporarily with its egg divinity. This one is not finished. I don't know what's going to happen in the center, but for that moment, that seemed just right. And I was reminded about how my relationship with the mandalas was like the coevolutionary relationship of beings in nature. What would the flower be without the bee? What would the bee be without the flower? And I felt as though I was beginning to be shown that my contribution, my purpose, my hands were of use in a way that was not to be denied. That was not to just come home and go into my little corner and bang my head against the wall because it didn't feel right. So maybe now is the time to pause just a little bit before I invite you into something that's a little bit scary to me. And if we go on gallery again, I'm just wondering, what is resonating with you about what you've heard so far? What is resonating? And maybe you prefer to write it in chat.
Well, there's been several comments, and the one from the beginning from Yona, who said that the sweat lodge is on a place called Mandala. Our sweat lodge community is located on beautiful mountain land called Mandala Springs, created by all that come and give of themselves. So that was an initial connection with your mandala. And Ola added, life springing forth from the mountains, mandala style. What a coincidence. Yeah, I mean, it struck me that you said there is beauty in everything. And there is a reputed quote about beauty may yet save the world.
Oh.
So there's a reputed quote about beauty may yet save the world. Out of all that out of your talk and all you've been sharing with us, there's one word that comes to me, which is reverence. I feel that your hands are in like a sacred mission, and there's a great sense of reverence for life, for existence that's coming out of your presencing with your mandalas. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that is how it feels. In fact, the way that I have come to understand that idea from the mandalas is as sacred attentiveness. Sacred attentiveness and that kind of reverence that you're talking about, Tex, feels to me as though there is sacrilege with the, oh, but who am I? Or the, let me bang my head against the wall. That is a kind of a desacralizing. Am I making sense about that? Yeah. Linda, you have something.
Yeah. I'm also a seasoned artist, and what I'm recognizing, and I love Tex that you brought in the reverence, because there's two parts of that reverence, but I'll get to that. Because first, there's a structure in which you created intuitively to be able to create some parameters within which something could arise that had meaning for you and others. And that's a very important thing for an artist, to be able to recognize the importance of a parameter or a structure to work within. And I've done that. I've gone through that process a lot. That's why I can speak about it. But the other thing is that what I think is that this reverence that we speak of as reverence is really when we feel creation moving through us. We have something that we're experiencing because we're bringing something from nothing into form. And I look at that as a feeling of creation moving through me. And that's the other side of this reverence, because we have the reverence because we've experienced being the creation. Anyway, that's my little input from my experience.
Thank you for that so much, Linda. I don't have little tags that fiber artists often do that they can pin or sew into their work, you know, made by, lovingly made by. So I made myself one for one gift, and I used the Greek iconographer's tradition, which is translated as from the hands of or through the hands of, and then my first name, through the hands of, because it feels just, I imagine, like iconographers feel. It's not entirely my creation. Is that consistent with what you're saying, Linda?
Yes. When I say moving through me, I'm not being personal. It's the divine gift that you're acknowledging, and that's a reverence.
Thank you. Dr. Tom.
When Tex made his comment about hands, I had just clicked my hand. And so the coming through, and of course, you know, this has been such a gorgeous week of synchronicities. And I have some work for you, by the way. I have, you need to explore my garage and closets. And I got plenty of material for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The thing I wanted to talk about was, you mentioned, you were talking about sacred attentiveness. Mm-hmm. And what's been present for me all day has been right relation. Mm. Right. We were talking this morning about the elder of the day is air, wind, right? And so one of the plenary sessions this morning was talking about right relation in that co-creative space. And you're bringing this sacred reverence. I love how you personified, and you talked about the, how did you say they were despondent? They were unhappy that you were
forlorn.
Forlorn, yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm an extremist. So
thank you for that. It took me a while to stop squelching my sense of these messages, as if to say, don't anthropomorphize, or that's just you. And once again, that's a desacralizing. So this is now my edge, is to learn to accept those messages.
It's very palpable, and I honor you for that. You know, just so good for you for being able to listen and knowing there was a space, that there was something that's a hunger. That's a sacred self-respect.
Thank you.
You know, maybe not even having the words or knowing what it's going to look like, but you're gonna find it.
Like Yona's story of accepting thanks, says Orla. Yeah. the self-respect, the respect of life, the respect of cosmos. One of the deep insights from myself and my work is about co-creation and co-evolution. That as an individual, I'm seeing myself and my creativity arising out of the billions of years old continuous creative force of the universe. It sounds big, but it's a feeling, to put words to it. And as organizations and communities that I'm working with, the co-creation within their context, it's not the business itself. It's the business within the context of its regulators, of its customers, of its supply chain. That is not an unusual idea. The unusual idea is a spiritual one, that the maximizing profits kind of takes us away from the very sacred attentiveness of what is needed here. What is needed here? In fact, Orla, thank you so much for the phrase that you gave me when we were swimming in the Gulf of Mexico the other day together. And I'm in Cleveland right now, so I'm really remembering that moment with great gratitude. And what you called this is these mandalas as the halo of emergence. And I love that, the halo of emergence that makes sacred these creative acts, that makes sacred that blanket in the woods with everyone's mandala pieces around, and that makes sacred the last piece that I'd like to show you, which is still in progress. And I'm calling it 60 Days of Magenta. Here are a few of the small pieces. They range from 1 inch to 4 inches, so they're pretty small. They are the result of my having reams of this amazing color fabric, amazing magenta fabric. And so I've made 60 of them. And I plan to have them in a assembly, all 60 of them, in a huge hoop. It might be a hula hoop. I don't know, it doesn't matter, it'll be covered up. It might be a big hoop of vine, which is also from my garden. I don't know, but here's my point. Why, besides the fact that magenta just suddenly appeared in my life, why magenta? So I looked it up. What is magenta? Do you know that magenta symbolizes kindness? It symbolizes, I don't know whose interpretation. And so in the center of this, if you can imagine 3.5 diameter dream catcher of 60 mandalas, in the center will be, this has only just begun. This is only maybe a third of the size. And I've zoomed in so you can see what I've stuck in there. Do you recognize that? Do you recognize this piece? It says kind. Have you ever eaten a kind bar? That's what that is.
Yum.
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 Yum in many ways. And
Yum.
so I leave you today with yum, but also a gift. Here's what's making me a little nervous because I'm not sure how I'm going to offer this. My idea, and it won't happen because it's my idea, but I'm just telling you anyway, that this 60 mandala at the end of the 60 days will be disappeared, like the Buddhist monks disappear their sand mandalas. And I will invite anyone who wishes to take a piece of kindness with them in what I expect will be, on the one hand, performance art, but in the other hand, just the continuing gift of life. And so I leave you again with that greeting. Yum!
Wonderful. It's even more than wonderful. It's wondrous how how you bring, how you brought out the possibility of beauty in everything, you know. And I think Ola wrote that, you know, within quotes, garbage is you know, like the production of men. How did she put that? Garbage is earth shaped, earth with capital E, shaped by human hands. So, you know, there's a lot of food for thought in there, you know. And one man's garbage becomes another woman's art. That's what's happening with you. And Brian Tucker wrote, the simplicity of listening to the guidance coming to you from the mandala art and the creativity of your exploration. The simplicity of listening to the guidance coming to you from the mandala art and the creativity of your exploration. Actually, I mean, to me, it's the first time I'm hearing an artisan, I mean, like elaborating so philosophically on the process, and also what, you know, the content, you know. I mean, like it's wonderful. And Ola wrote, dipping into the river, the change is already in motion. The need in you to honor the divinity as reverence.
That is a huge need. Thank you for seeing that, Orla.
Yeah. And Phil wrote also, mandalas can express our art through color, beauty, nature, and feelings. It's a spiritual expression. Let your heart be your guide, which is what is coming through from what you've shared with us, that, you know, it's very spiritual what's happening. And Annie has a lot of material for you to use. She says, I've been collecting unrecyclable plastic for a few years with the idea that I will create some sort of art from it someday. That these items fashioned from fossilized energy deserve to become something beautiful.
Maybe that's something we work on together, Annie.
Yeah, repurposing comes to mind. Useful repurposing, or at least repurposing for beauty. And Hasina wrote, emergence in the moment. Yeah. I think you're resonating profoundly with everyone, really.
Thank you, everyone.
Argerie, save the chat. Those comments are beautiful, and it will be great for you to have them.
Thank you, I will. So I invite you all to be part of the Magenta experiment. If you all wish, I will take your email addresses that you have given and let you know how that distribution, dissipation, blowing away of the kindness will happen.
Viola wrote, wow, your creativity and passion for this work is truly inspiring. Thank you for these moments of reverence. And Dr. Tom wrote, my favorite phrase was, can you imagine this without its divinity?
Well, can you?
It's a great way to walk through life, right? Even
so.
when we're looking at something that might not, we don't necessarily think it might be beautiful or perfect, right? I'm going to presence that sentence. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Resonating. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
I think you're making mandala ripples by your words. It's rippling into everyone.
I like that.
La, 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 la.
Yeah. I wonder what music that goes with. What next, Tex?
Well, we are wrapping up at 6. We have 10 more minutes, so let's we'll put it in gallery view, and we'll just let people express what their divinity calls them to share with us. No, what do you think, Argerie?
I love that idea.
I want to hear you, Ola. You just write, but your voice, I mean, we're doing music here. We want some music, and the musicality of your voice, we miss that. She wrote, "What a lovely afternoon. Thank you for sharing and look forward to more." Now, the more will come on Friday. We have 4 hours on Friday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. The first one will be Josh, who has quite a title also. I can go and check that immediately. On Friday, we start off with Josh, building a stairway to heaven. There's still time to change the road we're on. That's Josh Silver. Then we have the next one will be Hasina Patel from South Africa, all the way from Newcastle in KwaZulu-Natal. Journey of the Truth Walker. Oh, looking forward to that one. And then we'll have Peril and Promise. We'll start Peril and Promise by this meditation that Carol Kilby does, Peril and Promise. Then we'll go into a group discussion with Dr. Tom, who will lead us and see what can emerge out of that. But I mean, even the Peril and Promise, it's resonating with what you've just shared with us, you know, because we feel that with all this potential garbage that we human beings have been doing, like, which is imperiling us, but potentially there's promise. If we look deeply, there's even beauty, and we can learn some lessons and develop a greater sense of reverence for living, you know, and for material, for whatever, for life, everything. I mean, that's what I'm sensing at this time. Hasina, chirp in. I know it's a bit late for you now, but
it's okay. I've chirped enough.
I wanted to say something before we'll be closing soon, you know.
I think that was beautiful, Argerie. It was so amazing and so unique.
I love the idea of seeking the reverence for life in everything. And so if there's anything besides yum that we might leave with, it is the deliciousness of that thought, that everything before us is sacred, if we have eyes to see it.
Yeah.